All right. Hey, I am here with my good friend Greg Gibbs. And Greg, I've never done this before.
I know, it's exciting. I love
Yeah.
that we're doing this.
And when I thought about who's a person I could interview about generosity, there was 3 or 4 people, and they all said no.
So you got me.
Then I got you.
All right. Well,
So I'm excited
I'm
about
here
that.
and willing at least.
When you before we get into that discussion, let's talk a little bit about. I just feel so important right now. I feel like a podcaster.
You are important.
Yeah. Probably 3 people. My mom, my grandmother are watching this right now.
Hey, Mom.
Yeah. But anyways, tell us, give us a snapshot of who you are, who Greg Gibbs is.
So I'm married to Andrea. We have 4 kids. We've been married for 30 years. Met in college.
Hey, you got a really crazy family. You guys in a good way.
Yeah, it's fun.
You got people in LA, but not
People
just
in
living in
LA.
LA.
Yeah,
Your son
in the entertainment industry.
the
So is my daughter.
entertainment.
Yeah.
Yeah, both.
But my daughter-in-law and my daughter. Yeah. Yeah. So we have a fun family, 4 kids. One of them's married, our oldest, and the 2 oldest are in LA in the entertainment industry. My son's an actor. My daughter is behind the camera as a producer.
How many dads get to say, "Hey, Clint, come watch my son. He's on Broadway."
Yeah, that was fun.
That was amazing.
Well, and you were my favorite person to take to that show because it was a comedy show, and I knew you would cackle.
I couldn't breathe.
Yeah.
I seriously had to change. I brought diapers. I brought Depends that night. and
That's
I
probably
wore
not good for the podcast, the video,
Oh,
your diapers.
anyways.
Yeah, and then my other 2 kids are really cool in a different way because they're super great math, science. So we have 2 ends of the spectrum, the entertainment arts kids and then the math, science kids.
Wow.
Yeah,
It's
really
so
fun.
cool. And you are, you have a lot in common with Noah right now.
The hair, the age, what is it?
That's part of it, but the boat.
Oh, the boat, yeah. So I bought on Craigslist.
Same
or
size.
From Craigslist, not the same size, a 16-foot.
I hope we have it. We can show it right now. I hope we can show it.
Let's
Yeah.
do it. Yeah. I love it. It's my pandemic hobby project. For whatever reason, my wife was gracious and she's so good to me. She's like, sure, whatever, because I decided to buy a 1958, so a 62-year-old wooden runabout that needed a complete stripped down refinish, all original parts, original trailer, original motor, and I don't know a thing about it. So I'm asking people and YouTubing and whatever, but that's my project. And it's been really fun.
It is so cool, and it's like it's really cool looking boat until you put a really cool picture of a Chris Craft right beside
That's
it.
right. Yeah. Yeah.
Is it like the third cousin?
The third cousin to a Chris Craft for sure. Distant relative.
When you're in ministry, it's do you have another a lesser version of a Chris Craft?
That's right.
Oh, I'm going to have to rebuild the thing?
Yeah.
Hey, real quick, I don't mean to switch and get super insightful right now, but I will. I know
We'll see.
people.
I'll be the judge of that.
But you taught me something yesterday.
Mm.
There's a difference between restoring and
Preserving. Yeah.
I thought that was really good because I would say, oh, Greg, you're restoring that boat.
Yeah.
Talk
And
about that.
Yeah. So I've learned that restoring a boat, and maybe it applies to other things too, is bringing it back to the condition that it was once in when it was originally made.
Yeah.
So people that actually restore boats, not me, have the time and money and expertise to go back to mint condition, show it in antique boat shows kind of thing. And I can't do that. Maybe someday I will, but for now I'm preserving it, which is it wasn't being used. It was kind of rotting away in a driveway, and so I'm preserving it by bringing it back at least to useful life.
Yeah.
And hopefully I can, take friends and especially my dad who was
Yeah.
the Coast Guard on a ride in my boat that I've
That's
preserved.
so cool.
Yeah.
Well, Greg, I want to talk to you about a few things, and what we're probably going to do with this little segment, or we're going to break this up into a few segments over the next 3 to 4 weeks. And so I hope you tune in and watch some of this because you are, I still remember we worked together for 10 years. And one of the biggest things that I learned from you was not just your leadership and wisdom and, projecting the future. You are a futurist, you really are good at that stuff, but just learning the heart of generosity and really understanding. I remember being in a meeting with you and there's 100 people, and it was actually the campus I was kind of leading at the time at Kensington Church.
I don't know what you're going to say right now, so I'm a little nervous.
And you were teaching about generosity, and I remember you teaching on some things. And as the leader and the pastor of that community, I tried not to be like shocked, like have shock on my face, like I've never heard that before. But it was just like so inspiring, and you just totally helped people understand generosity from a different angle. And it really is. It really is from a biblical perspective. It really is. Yeah. And because I think when we hear generosity, we think money immediately. So I know it is about that, but there's so much more. So take us on. We're going to spend a few weeks on this. It's not like we're going to stay here for a few weeks and talk. But I want to give people like just some really cool, really good anchor points of that. I never thought of that. Just to almost do a paradigm shift when it comes to generosity. Yeah. So where do we start?
Yeah, it's great. I love this question, and I've spent a lot of my life pursuing it. Initially, I just started to learn about it or understand it through experience and like kind of how my parents raised me and things like that. And then as I started to study more of Scripture and also experience more in the church and in faith-based nonprofits, I'm like, oh, this is a big deal. Like it's a big deal not just for like financially funding things that are God's work in the world, but even more importantly than that, it's a big deal for my own heart, my own marriage, my own soul. And what I started to discover was if you look at any statistics on marriage, stress, anxiety, brokenness, whatever, almost all of them are in some way connected to our view of or our handling of or our mishandling of money. Let me just take marriage, for instance. I know in my marriage, which I think is a good one, if we have a tense conversation...
Hold on, we have Andrea on the phone right now.
You should ask my wife. That's actually the rule of guys evaluating their own marriage. But if we ever have a tense conversation in our marriage, it's about money. I mean, 9 out of 10 times, it's something that has to do with money. And so I don't think we're the only couple that way. But if you think of parent-child relationships, if you think of business partner relationships, I mean, if you think of anything, if you think of governments that are trying to seize power or financial resources. I mean, I always say every aspect of humanity, from governments at the world level all the way down to my human heart, money plays into either our sense of satisfaction or our sense of dissatisfaction. It's a deeply, deeply spiritual thing. And the funny thing about Christianity is Jesus knew this. Jesus taught about it all the time. But somehow we've missed it in the church, and it's become more about like church budgets and whether or not we pay the preacher and so much sort of almost the tactical financial side of money and not the part of money that has to do with my soul and my emotional and spiritual health. So you almost have to recognize the problem first before you start coaching people on generosity. And so that's where I start. I start with recognizing the problem.
Anyways, I think one of the greatest things about living here in the Bay Area is the amount of creativity, also the amount of potential.
Yeah.
Financially, it's one of the wealthiest places in the world. And I look at that as going, man, not as how do we get people to give more money and blah, 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 but how do we get people to see that they are a part of the solution, that what is happening here and the money that is here, that's one part of it. But how do people start seeing themselves differently and like, oh, man, what I have can be a tool to solving a lot of the issues that we see around us.
Yeah, I love that. I mean, I think part of it is some people do in the Bay Area, as you know, see themselves as having resources to be able to make a difference, right? So they're already trying to live life that way. And we have people that are even not Christian or trying to follow Jesus that can be charitable and lovely people. So I think you and I both know that, but at the same time, there's this like big difference once you start to bump into Christian theology that I think is very hard to shift. And that's where you and I have talked before about like this big worldview shift or mental shift or paradigm shift. And it's this. If you look at Scripture and look at this topic in particular, first of all, it's all over the Bible. Old Testament, New Testament, teachings of Jesus. It's funny to me as I've started to study it because it's a massive issue in Christianity, Christian theology, and the Scripture, but we shy away from it so much in the church because it is so volatile and emotional that we don't want people to get mad. And I know your heart is you don't want people to think you're just shaking them down for money, right?
And there's been an abuse of power.
For sure.
Been an abuse of money. And
there still is right now. I mean,
a huge skepticism towards why would I even think about that or do that, give to the church.
Yeah, which I honor that skepticism because I'm frustrated with the abuses
Yeah.
of money too. But part of it is when you make this major shift that says anything I am or have or are or hold or ever will be is because of the hand and provision of God. Then what you realize is anything you are holding in your hands technically doesn't belong to you, but has been given to you by the creator of the world and the universe, who says, hey, Clint, or hey, Greg, I've given you some stuff. Hey, let's use it wisely for the building of a kingdom on earth as it is in heaven. So then I start looking at either my job or my salary or my savings or my house or my whatever, and I go, oh, I'm supposed to be thinking and prayerful and thoughtful about ways that I can use this stuff for other people, including my family and extended family and whatever, but also for people that I may not know, for the poor. I mean, there's a big deal in Scripture about how we who have resources treat people who don't have resources. That's huge.
Yeah, one of the things I've been reading through the Old Testament again, and you would see there's a lot of things out in there that are disturbing.
For sure.
But one of the common themes of when God would even turn his back or he would come and apply some pretty strict discipline to his people, one of the number one reasons is the lack of justice when it came to money, like when it came to people in the margins, when it came to helping people with what you have, right? It's like he set up a whole system for this not to happen, yet we do what we want to do as individuals, and we pull away from that.
I totally agree. I mean, I think as simple as the concept is, it may be one of the hardest concepts to embrace in all of Christianity. As a matter of fact, some people have said it's the last thing to get redeemed or saved in our lives. Is we love when God saves our marriage and saves our children and saves us from, addictions and all that kind of stuff. But we're not quite sure we want God to save us from our grip on our money, because we want to still manage that ourselves. But this shift in a view that says it's all God's and it's not mine is difficult, because I don't see God. I see myself and my hard work and, I earned the paycheck and I went to college and all that kind of stuff. So we should be proud about that and excited about our accomplishments in education. But if you dig deep, you have to say, literally, if you say the next breath I have is because God allowed me to have the breath, then things like income and money and resources are certainly at the hand of God. And it causes me to ask different questions about money. And so when we reduce generosity or giving to the church or to charities as like this financial thing only, like, oh, I should be generous because they need to meet a budget, or because, that's a part of good budgeting or whatever, that's fine and good. But it's even missing the deeper part of it, which is if I am not a person who is managing things as if they were God's, and I'm just trying to hold white-knuckled onto everything that ever comes into my hands, it's proven that is toxic to our souls. I mean, it's not even even outside of Scripture, just in sociology and in psychology, we know that as much as people want to get more money, it actually causes just as much problems as it solves at some point. And that pursuit ends up leading to emptiness. And so that's why I say to guys like you that are leading people spiritually, don't ignore the money thing, because if you're my pastor, I need you to talk about it, because it's the thing that's probably causing a lot of my angst and my anxiety and maybe my marriage problems. I mean, I don't know. But for you to just say, hey, I don't want to talk about it so I don't offend you, Greg, I'm like, whoa, dude, that's like, if you're my pastor, you got to help me.
Yeah, it is amazing the grip that it can have on our lives. And when we start, this is with anything, when we're able to be open-handed or when we can give it away, it's almost, it doesn't have control on us anymore. We have control over that. And that was one of the key. It wasn't that Jesus needed more money or God needs more money or the church needs more money, but it is the whole idea is the freedom that it actually brings to the individual and brings to the people around them.